Paul Gadola is our speaker this morning. Paul and his wife Shelley live in Damascus with 5 dogs now. They've added one and 2 cats. They own Iron Mountain CrossFit and Sun Meal Prep. As many of you know, Paul just finished the main content of his book with the working title, Integrity and Peace, Loving Your Neighbor and the Path of Truth. And he is speaking to us this morning about the 23 stages of a soul, according to Sean O'Leary. So Paul, you're on. Thank you.
Thank you all for having me, of course. It's always an honor to be here with you guys. Jerry Murphy knows Sean quite well and worked under or with Sean, correct, Jerry? Yeah, okay. And it is O'Leary. Jerry, yes.
Yeah, Sean, I've known Sean for a few years, and he wrote the foreword to my book, and we've just corresponded a lot over the years. And yeah, that's all, Paul. Thank you.
Right. So I will give Jerry credit for getting me connected or interested in Sean's work, and he has a website. It's called spiritsinSpacesuits.com, and his group that most of the videos I've watched, and it's a similar situation to this. Of course, I just watch him. I don't see the whole group like I see you. But it's called companionsonthejourney.org, or COJ. So he'll mention that a lot in his talks. And the very first video I watched of him, I believe Jerry turned me on to, and it was about the second coming of Christ. And that was something that always kind of struck a chord with me. And I always see people talking about the second coming. And my aunt even went on and on and on to me about how I better be looking towards the clouds, because he's going to be the clouds are going to be parting and he's going to be coming down. And I didn't think that was quite it. But listening to Father Sean's talk, well, of course, I was right according to Sean, and he really laid out what the second coming means quite clearly. So if that's something that you're interested in, you might even want to start there with him. But what I want to talk about today is what he calls the Ascension Project. And these are his words. It's from God's womb to God's heart. And the first thing I would encourage is to make sure that as the image of God, you're not thinking of some dude hanging out right now. It's much bigger than we can think. And what I would write in my book, it's bigger than we think, and it's bigger than we can think, which is not even possible. So just go on from it. There can be 3 parts of this journey, and that's the journey of the individual soul. It can be, and that's in a lifetime of what we're literally experiencing right now. So I was born in 1972. I'm on my journey right now to whenever that happens to end in this part. But it would go on, because the opposite of birth is death, it's not the opposite of life. Death is not the opposite of life. Life is on and on and on and endless. So it could go on over many lifetimes. And of course, with time as a concept in the way we think of it, that's complicated, but we won't talk about that today. And then it's also the evolution of all manifest reality. So as we would go on individually, as an individual incarnation, it also includes everything and all of manifest reality. And individually on this journey, then we can be conscious of our journey or proceed unconsciously. And the thing that I would say about that is that you have to realize if you are in fact going on or you are going on consciously, that you have to realize that those that are unconscious then in that use of the term, they don't know that they are unconscious. And so you can't be mad at them and you can't attack them. And that would just lend to your maybe not being quite as progressed on this journey that I'm going to take us through here, according to Sean, as you may think. So a key element of this is what he would, and you're familiar with the term sacraments or rites of passage. And the sacrament, so these 23 things that I will get into are all sacraments in his mind. And the sacrament, very specifically, is the very mindful ritualization of the significant shifts in both status and responsibility or obligations in the wider community, not just your family, the tribe, but all the global community. And in previous talks, and you may be familiar with this term, and I can't think of the exact researcher that named this or whoever named this, but I've talked about it going from egocentric development to ethnocentric development to world-centric development onto cosmocentric development. So that would be like a four-stage model that you could think of, but really it's still going to be within these 23. That would be just, you know, a much simpler version. And there's other things like this. Hinduism, of course, has their progression from the student to the householder to the hermit to the guru. Shakespeare had 7 stages. It was infancy to schoolboy, teenager, young man, middle age, old age, and death. So again, you could break it up however you want. And you may have seen there's a, well, I think it's quite funny, meme where it's actually like a almost comic statue of Jesus that says there are 2 kinds of people in this world, those who divide the world into 2 kinds of people and those who don't. So, and of course, even if you're saying that, you're doing that very thing. You're dividing it into 2 kinds of people. So that's kind of a conundrum that we're in all the time. And one more simple way to break these up, and before I go into the 23, is just what Sean calls the 4-stage model. And it's that we progress from self-awareness, where this would be about age 0 to 7, where we react to the environment. Then we go into self-regulation. That would be 7 to 12. This is where we modify behavior. We start modifying our behavior based on the feedback we're getting. And then about age 12, and again, that's relatively, it doesn't have to be exactly that age. It's self-reflective, and this is where we're learning rules and roles. And then we would go on, maybe, to, in this model, the 4th stage, which is self-transcendent. And that's realizing that you're just much more than an ego, and this is what he would call the soul on safari, which I think is one of his books, but I might be wrong about that. Okay, so the 20 stages, and I'll try to not go on and on here, and we'll get through these in less than 20 minutes for sure. So the very first stage is God is self-fracturing. So this is in the beginning, it's the Big Bang. You are an individuation, or you are a fractal of the whole. And then that goes right into then immediately the second stage, or second sacrament, is the individual soul volunteers for incarnation. And that, of course, could be strongly up for debate. If you've read any past life regression kind of material, that does correlate with that kind of material. You could also think that this is the souls who volunteer, right? So the soul volunteers for incarnation. Those that volunteer create experiences for God, for the whole. The third one is the launching pad, and this is souls jumping into incarnation. And of course, we would only know that here on Earth right now, but that could be any dimension, any realm, anything else there is beyond what we know here. The fourth is the docking of the soul to the body. And so this is the would be the debate almost in the abortion debate, but according to Sean, the soul can dock at any moment during pregnancy, and it can actually come and go from that body, from that material body that we're all living in now. Okay, the fifth then is birthing, and maybe more importantly, the first breath. And of course, breath is such an important word. Throughout almost pretty much every religion, the ruach, or the spirit of God. In Greek, it's pneuma. Inspiration comes from that. And of course, if you expire, that would be to die, would be your last breath. So that's number 5. Number 6 then is going to get into almost those stages that I was talking about, egocentric to ethnocentric to world-centric to cosmocentric. And number 6 is the development of the ego in particular. And he suggests that this happens roughly at 8 months of age. And this you could also think of, this is like the original separation, or what I would say is the original separation is the idea of original sin. Not that we're all sinners, it's that we're originally separated from God, from the whole, whatever that is. And this is where we begin creating defense mechanisms. Number 7 then is becoming Homo erectus. This is where we begin walking, and this would be the self-regulation stage would also start going, where we react to our environment, we react to our parents, our caregiver, whatever, what they're telling us is good and bad. Before we were just behaving, now we are reacting, consciously to a degree, you could say that. Number 8 then is become Homo sapiens sapiens, and this is where we develop speech. This is typically 18 to 24 months. Number 9 is we go deeper into the original separation, and we are doing this more consciously, where we are intentionally differentiate from things. So we say no, me, mine. And of course, anybody that has had kids or been around kids know that we say that. And of course, we know plenty of adults that still act that way too. And they would be stuck at that stage of development. Okay. Number 10 then is thinking rationally. So this is rules and roles. So this is where we've gone from egocentric to ethnocentric, where there's rules and consequences, and we interact in the community, and we have that chance to do not what's just best for me, not the egocentric, but also what is best for the community at large, or at least our immediate family, like at least that step. And this would typically be, maybe age 7, and of course that would vary too. So it's where we're doing not just what is good for me, but good for more than however far that goes out. Typically, it's just going to be family or your immediate, friends and community right then. Number 11 is puberty. This is where we're going to encounter more rules, restraints, and laws. We see the hypocrisy of sexuality, where we're so driven by this urge, but yet we have all these rules and crazy taboos about it. And then, and something like on that, you think so my mother, my mother's mother, my grandmother had my mother at 16. They were already literally married. I actually asked my mom if were they married because she was pregnant or not, but she was married. Where now we can be like, oh my God, these kids having sex at 16. Well, before they were just married at maybe 14 or 13. So what has changed is our thoughts about it, not necessarily our inherent nature behind it. Number 12 then is the self-reflection stage or self-reflective stage. And this is when you begin to maybe question your own journey, question your family and culture. You may start challenging the stories that you've been told, whether they're the historical stories, the theological stories, or the cosmological stories. What's the purpose of this all? You begin to start questioning that. And now you're going to be slipping in from egocentric to ethnocentric to world-centric. The next stage, number 13, is when you may encounter the first romantic relationship in your life. And this is, you may love, another person beyond your family, of course, and it's going to be, one part hormonally driven there, but it was going to lead to self-reflection too. The next stage, and not everybody would have this necessarily, but many do, is committed to a long-term relationship, and you become, in our theory, we think we should be faithful to maybe only one relationship. Of course, many of us know that is way more complicated and difficult than as easy as said, as it seems. The next sacrament, number 15, is your development of a profession. So you've gone to school of whatever sort, or you've graduated at least high school and you go on to get your first job. And now you can contribute to the world. And this is an interesting stage because we're setting the stage for the ability to start regressing or going back. And you might even think of that as from the idealism to going back, like, okay, I do got to take care of what's closest to me. And maybe in doing so, I do it at the expense of others. And again, because that's so complicated, because everything we do has a ripple effects out. That is stage 16, is literally then the first child maybe comes on, and now regression is fully possible, because you've transferred the object of your love to something else. It's probably deeper than even the love for your spouse or your mother, potentially, particularly for mothers. So I'm told, I can't speak for that. And again, this is where the regressions possible, where instead of world-centric, you're back to ethnocentric. You got to take care of what's close at hand. Then as we proceed on, you may end up having your first grandchild. And according to Sean, this is where expansion happens again. And now maybe you've always been kind of going back and forth between even as low as egocentric, or sometimes doing only what's right for you, sometimes ethno, and now you can progress on a little more to world-centric, ideally. But of course, as we know in the world, many people are stuck at ethno at best, and the whole, American patriotism, absence of that thought out is that level there. We're stuck in ethno and not going on to world-centric. Number 18, the 18th sacrament then is the embrace of the entire planet. He was suggesting this is between 50, 60, and 70 years old. I think that could be at any time. And maybe that has to do with whether you have children or not. So for me, I'm 49, but have never had children. So maybe I was allowed or able to proceed a little bit more quickly in some areas because I didn't have that natural regression back. And I say this all the time, I like to think that I'm a peaceful, person that wants to live, non-violently in ahimsa, but I've never had somebody attack directly somebody I love. So I don't know how that would actually be had that happen. Number 19 is the dawning of enlightenment. And this, of course, would just be within this single incarnation, not over the course of those different three levels of incarnation that we talked about. And the important thing to know about like that with enlightenment, it's not an on-off switch. It's a sliding scale. And it's going to go back and forth. And also, every moment is a new day to demonstrate that. And I think the important thing on that is that it's the chop wood, carry water. Like, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. You still have to do the basic things. You have to dress and eat. You have to take care of your responsibilities, which might be deeper than just taking care of yourself, of course. And even your job is going to, other people are depending, on you, and everyone is interconnected. And then the 20th sacrament, and this would be in that first aspect of, when we split them into just three, the journey of an individual soul, is the 20th sacrament then is death. And this is, as Sean believes, and this is actually what I would believe too, and I believe many of you perhaps believe this, it's a transition from a form to another form. And so whatever it is that we all have inside of us, even though we all have different bodies, but they're similar, we transition on. So if that's what you want to call the soul, that's what Sean's calling it, whatever you want to call that, that is what transforms from one form to another. Okay, so that would be the 20 in this lifetime. And I'll just do the last three then quickly, and then we can have a chat about this. So the last three sacraments, number 21 is the Bodhisattva vow. And so we've gone beyond egocentric, beyond ethnocentric, beyond world-centric, where we're solely in cosmocentric. And this is where we would be until we could possibly merge with source, which would actually just take us back to number one. We were in source and we became a fractal, and that would be the circle. And of course, like in Hinduism, in the yugas, I won't go into that, but that's like the cycle of all of life. So maybe that's true. Number 22 then is reincarnation, that you are going. So we were, the first 20 was in a single lifetime. So now we would be deciding to purposely go back again, because that would go back to the number 2 there, where number 2 was to volunteer for incarnation. So if we were reincarnating, we would be volunteering again. And this is something that's interesting where he talked about cryptomnesia, where it's like something that you may know because of this continuation from one lifetime as we know it to another lifetime. You know something and then it comes out later and you may have that feeling like that I always knew it. Or there's examples of people that just started speaking a language that they've never learned in a single lifetime, or understood somebody. So somehow that could all be connected. And then finally, the last sacrament, number 23, is the all souls are gathered again in God, in the whole, whatever that term is, it doesn't matter. And we've gone from God's womb to God's heart, and the game is over. And I'll talk about it.